In this video, I'm going to disassemble, clean, lubricate, and reassemble a Mossberg 500 20 gauge shotgun. This particular one has an 18.5-inch home defense barrel on it and a pistol grip. I'll show you what I use. You don't necessarily need all of this. First, I'm going to use a bench block to knock one of the pins out, cut up t-shirt, cotton cloths for cleaning purposes, patches, specifically the size made for shotguns, copper barrel brush, which goes on the end of our rod. This rod is part of a gun cleaning kit, and it's long enough to reach through this barrel. All-purpose gun brush with a small end and a larger end, 1/4-inch Allen key just to get the pistol grip off of the back, some cotton swabs. They're double-ended. They got a regular end and a pointy end for getting in all the different tight spots. 20 gauge snap caps. These are basically fake ammo we're going to use after we put it back together to make sure everything functions properly. For cleaning, I use original gun oil, which is a CLP. It's a cleaner, lubricant, and protectant. You can use it to clean and also use it to lubricate. If you don't want to use that, or if you have something else, you can use a gun solvent like Hoppy's number 9. This is an all-purpose gun solvent. It's good stuff. I put it in this Menda dispenser so I can keep the main amount here from getting contaminated. Just push this and it pumps up a little at a time for me to use. And I also have a pin punch set. We're going to need to push out a pin. You don't need a whole set. You can probably just buy one, or you can probably find a small screwdriver that'll work. Okay, so first, as always, we need to make sure the gun is completely unloaded. Nothing in the chamber and nothing in the magazine tube. And we always check the chamber twice. Make sure there's nothing in there. But now we want to close the bolt about halfway. Now we want to unscrew the takedown bolt to pull the barrel off the front of the gun. It just comes off like that. Now I want to take 1/4-inch Allen key and remove the pistol grip on the back. Next, we want to remove the trigger housing, which is held in by this trigger housing pin. And this is what I use this device for. Just going to get a pin punch and just push this pin right out. That actually came out pretty easily. And now the trigger housing will just lift up out of the way. You heard some pieces fall. We're going to get to those in a minute. Now, Mossberg does not recommend taking this any further apart. We're just going to brush and wipe that down. So what happened inside here, this piece is called a cartridge stop, and it just sits in along the side here. We'll show you that better when we put it back together. And this is the cartridge interrupter on this side. This fits into this hole, so if you kind of like bang it out, it falls out. This sits in there like that, so you can remove those items. Next, we want to get this bolt slide out of here. So to get that out, you have to line it up. There's kind of a notch right here, so you want to use the forearm and slide this to this position, and then this piece lifts right out. Okay. So now the bolt is loose. You can just push the bolt right out of the front of the gun like that. And then now you want to remove the elevator, which is this piece here. When you lift this up, you just squeeze it, and it's got 2 pins that fit in there. Now the forearm at this point will now come right off the front of the magazine tube. And that is your disassembly. Now what we're going to do is clean the firearm. Basically, we're just going to clean each piece with either some CLP gun oil or some Hoppy's number 9, depending. We're going to clean the inside of the barrel, and then we're going to lube and put everything back together. So to clean each component, I'm going to get on some nitrile rubber gloves. Basically, I'm going to clean each piece pretty good. I mean, a lot of these pieces don't need a lot. It's going to be too bad, but I'm just going to clean each piece up. Just going to wipe it. Wipe it with a cloth to wipe the solvent and the dirt off. Make sure I get in all the little tight spaces there. Can get a brush and just brush down on all those tight spots. The brush will really get in there good. Get that solvent in there and wipe everything down. Just use a cotton swab to get the rest of the solvent out of there. So we'll get the elevator assembly. You want to get these pins nice and clean, because that's where it pivots on these pins. Got some moving pieces in here. Just trying to work around them best you can. Use the pointy part to get in any little grooves. that. Make sure there's no dirt in these little slots here, because this is where it grips onto cartridge to pull it out after it's been fired. Wipe everything down. Use the brush if you need to get into tight spots. Alright, the bolt's pretty clean. It's working good. Now the trigger assembly, I wouldn't use any solvent on this, on the trigger housing. I would just give this a good wipe down. This one was pretty dusty. This gun's just been kind of sitting in a corner for home defense use. Now you want to be careful when this is out of the gun. You don't want to press the trigger because the hammer's going to pop up and it could do damage. And if you see any dust down in there, get a brush and that'll really get in there and get all the dust out of there. Being careful not to press that trigger, wipe everything down. You don't want to use any chemicals on the rubber grip. I would just use a damp cloth, maybe even some soap and water if it's really dirty. This little trigger housing pin, just wipe that down. Now we have the forearm. It's a little dusty and dirty inside here. Just kind of brush that out. Little solvent on the forearms here, make sure they're nice and clean. Wipe them all down. Take a look through here, make sure there isn't a bunch of cruddy buildup in there. If there is, you can kind of just shove a cloth through there and that'll clean that up pretty good. This one's pretty clean. I'm gonna leave that. Now we have this frame piece here. Just gonna brush this out. Inside here, there's a lot of areas here where things are going to be sliding back and forth. A lot goes on in this area, so I'm going to clean this with original gun oil, which is a CLP. It's a cleaner and a lubricant. I like to use this as a cleaner sometimes because if you don't get all of it out after you put it on there, it's just going to kind of help protect. Just put a couple drops in there, and then I'll take a brush and spread all that around. So it's going to clean as well as add protectant and lubricant on there all at once. Once I get that in there all over the place, I just get a rag and I want to wipe out as much as I can. Any residue that's left is just going to help lubricate things and protect things from corrosion. One way that I get some of the residue out of all those little slots in there is put a cloth in there and just use the brush like that, and the brush bristles will push the cloth down into the tight spaces and kind of get everything clean. And then wipe the outside as well. This original gun oil is safe on all materials, rubber, wood, stocks. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm going to just wipe the magazine tube down. That's looking pretty good. Alright, now we want to clean the barrel, or the inside of the barrel actually. I don't know how dirty this one is. It probably hasn't been fired a lot. We want to get some patches, and we want to get a rod. Make sure the rod is long enough to go through the barrel. Most kits come with a rod that has many sections, so you can make it longer or shorter as necessary. Put a cloth on the end like that. It pumps a bunch up, then dip your rag in that. We want to get the inside a little bit wet, so then just push this through gently. The idea here is to get solvent all over the inside of the barrel. After the solvent's been in there for a short time, what we want to do is put a brush, copper or bronze brush on the end that is sized appropriately for your gun. This one is made for 20 gauge. It's got a little 20 on there. So now you just want to put that through the barrel. Might be a little tight, especially if it's new. Push that back and forth through there a couple of times. What that's going to do is loosen up all the dirt in there. And after you do that, put your loop or your jag back on, whichever you want to use. Alright, so after you loosened it with a brush, these dispensers are really handy. I'll put a link in the description. They're made by Menda. Alright, now you see what happens now after that brush went through. Look at how much more dirt we're getting out of there. Alright, so now you just want to keep putting fresh patches through until they start to come out clean. When they start coming out clean, you can start using dry patches to push through to start removing the solvent. Just start pushing dry patches through there. Alright, just use dry patches till they come out pretty clean. Then once you have it coming out pretty clean, Mossberg recommends putting a very light coating of oil inside the barrel, and that's more to keep corrosion away while it's being stored. So just put a few drops on a rag. You don't want much, you just want it to leave a little bit of residue of oil in there. So I would just kind of twist it through. And then that is it for the inside of the barrel. Now I would take a rag or a patch and just polish up the outside of the barrel. Alright, and we are good to go as far as cleaning. Now we're going to lubricate. Now how to lubricate the Mossberg 500 pump action shotgun. So Mossberg does not recommend a lot of oil, so you don't want to put too much oil in here because it's going to attract dust and dirt. I would just put a couple of drops on a rag, and then I'm just going to literally wipe down each piece with just a little bit of oil residue. Just when you get a little residue on there, it's going to lubricate it a little, it's going to protect it, and that's all I would do. Just make sure you get a little bit on each piece, especially pieces that move around inside the firearm. Pretty much all of them. You don't want to get any oil down inside the firing pin hole because that's going to bog up your firing pin, cause a problem. But on the outside, anywhere, and this piece here, I would kind of do the same, maybe one little tiny drop there, and just kind of spread that around on this slide piece. Now this original gun oil is non-toxic, so that's why I'm not using gloves right now. You can if you want, but it's non-toxic. It doesn't even have a smell to it, so it's not even bad to use inside the house. Just alright. Same thing here. I really kind of protect everything. This assembly here, same thing. A lot of things are going to be sliding around inside of here. A couple drops of oil, and just kind of polish the inside with a little bit of oil on a rag. Things slide along the top there. Get that down in there a little bit. Alright, and I would not put any oil on this assembly. You could also do the same here. Down in, a little bit down in here to get a little lube on that part there. Alright, now we're all lubed up. Alright, now we're going to reassemble the Mossberg 500 20 gauge shotgun. So first we're going to start with the frame and the forearm. Just the opposite of how we took it apart. So just line it up, the pole there, slide it on like that. Now these two arms have to go through these two slots at the same time. You have to line them up pretty tight. So you need to get these, move them around. Oh, I got lucky that time. Okay, move them around till they slide in, and then they're going to get stuck, so you got to push them down a little. Once you finagle them around to get those sliders in there. Next, we need to put in the elevator assembly. Goes in this way, and these pins end up in these holes here. Just squeeze it, line it up with those pins, and it'll end up just like this. After the elevator is in, the bolt goes in this way. So to get that in, pull the elevator partially out, and this goes right in where the barrel attaches. You can just kind of slide it in like that. Let it sit in the bottom. Now you have to get it past the ejector. So this ejector here, it's spring loaded, it's part of the frame here. So once you get past the ejector in there, the ejector goes in that slot. Push the bolt all the way to the back. Next we have the bolt slide. The bolt slide sits in this way. On the sides there's a notch here, and this is a notched out area right here, as you can see. So it's going to slide in that notched area, but before you do that, you need to have things kind of lined up. So we want to get the bolt, this notch here, get the back lined up with that. Forearm slides in. You want this notch lined up right there. That way when you take your bolt slide will drop right in this notch like that. Finagle that a little, and that part of the forearm will come right up right through those notches on the sides. And then push it down a little and bring it forward just to kind of hold things in place. Next we want to get our cartridge interrupter right here. This is the one with a pin on it, and that pin goes in this hole. So you just want to put it down in the side slot there like that. You have to hold it in place because it's just sitting there. It goes in that pin right here. Hold that in place, and then your cartridge stop does not have the pin on it, and it goes in with the curve toward the front of the gun this way. Now hold this in, and this one sits on the other side all the way up front like that. Now those are both kind of sitting there. You kind of need to hold those, and the next thing we're going to do is drop in the trigger housing, and that's just going to go right here. If you have everything lined up right, the front goes in first, then the back kind of drops down. Now once this is in, you don't have to hold these anymore. Then squeeze this here to hold it together, and then look through this hole to make sure it's a clear shot through there, and then insert your trigger housing pin like that. Now we just need to put the barrel back on. Alright, so the barrel is going to line up like this, okay, and then push it through in here. Line this up and make sure this lines up as well. Push that together. Turn this screw just thumb tight. Don't put a wrench on this. Just make it as tight as you can with your hand. Put the grip on the back. Just push that on. Put your bolt in there. Tighten that sucker up. Make that pretty tight. You don't want that loosening up. Your 20 gauge pump shotgun is back together. You can see if there's some fingerprints. You can wipe down the outside of your gun. Alright, next thing you want to do is a quick function and safety check. Check to make sure it is unloaded. There's no round in the chamber. There's no ammo in the tube. Check the chamber again to make sure we didn't just load it. The first thing we want to do, with the action lock lever pressed, we just want to move the forearm back and forth. Make sure everything seems to be working. Okay, and now with your safety on all the way to the rear, the trigger should not function. Now with the safety on fire position, with the safety off, actually with the red showing, make sure your gun is pointed in a safe direction even though we know it's unloaded, and press the trigger. The hammer should fall. And one last thing that I always do to make sure that my Mossberg is going to eject and extract properly is I get some snap caps. These are just fake ammunition, 20 gauge, a zoom. This is what I like. I like the orange ones to make it obvious that these are not real ammunition. And what I just do, I do this for all my guns after I reassemble them. It's just a nice way to check to make sure everything's working. Basically, I'm going to load 5 dummy rounds in there. Then I'm going to load one in the chamber. So now we have a gun that is loaded with snap caps. So basically all I'm going to do is work the action to make sure that it extracts and ejects a dummy round after each time I run the slide. So it should do that 5 times. They should jump out and everything will be working. So let's test it. Here we go. Alright, that's what I do, just to make sure everything's in place and everything's working. If you like this video, please hit like below, and please check out the links in the description below for all the products that we used in this cleaning procedure.